This is Shaikh Bilal Haque in front of you. And in today's class, we are going to discuss about the first part of the strategy, that is a chapter from the Strategic Business Leader examination. Now, the entire strategy portion I have divided into four different parts. I've divided the entire strategy portion into four different parts. The first part is the introduction of the term strategy, which says that we should commence our learning by simply understanding the word strategy and what does it mean. The word comes to us from the Greek word strategos, which refers to someone who is leading the position. Considering it for the business point of view, the term is commonly used in a company for decision making. Now, there are two different words, strategy and tactics. Remember, strategy is actually a first mover advantage by the company who is strategizing a specific thing, who is strategizing a specific decision making ability in order to perform well in the market. However, tactics is something that goes in the answer of a strategy being composed by a competitor. For example, if my competitor is doing aggressive marketing, what I'm going to do a tactics in order to give an answer to that aggressive marketing. So, strategy is basically when you are using your brain in order to incorporate, in order to present an idea that is going to be a valuable idea and that is going to pitch you into the market. Now it says, considering it from the business point of view, the term strategy is commonly used by a company for decision making process as it suggests how an organization is being led, what is the plan of action of the strategic level staff. So, in summary, if we look at this summary form view, the strategy is all about how the organization changes over a period of time. How does the organization changes over a period of time? Uh, Considering the fact that we need to identify the needs of the consumer, considering the fact that we need to identify what the consumer needs and wants are. The change may be deliberate. Obviously, there are sometimes we know that the consumer now needs something different, and the consumer wants to have a different type of product. They want to have more technologically advanced product. So what do they do is there's a deliberate change that is being needed in the market. The longer term direction evolved because of the shorter term decision making. Long term is usually taken to mean several years. So whenever I say short term, it means 1 year, but whenever I say long term, it means the decision making for more than 1 year. And obviously, majority of the decision within an organization are normally taken for with the perspective of more than 1 year. Now, if I move forward with the strategic management, now what actually is strategic management? How do we account for the strategic management? So, strategic management refers to the activity which is planned to achieve the overall long-term goals and objective of an organization. There are three basic stages of strategic management that every organization need to identify before going into the market. So the first stage number one is the first stage, that is the stage number one, is to evaluate your current position. Now, you first need to evaluate your current position. Where are you currently standing right now? So, it says that if I talk about the strategic position, the strategic management basically involved or is referred to as a process or any activity which is planned to achieve the overall objective of long-term goals of the company. So there are three stages involved when I talk about the strategic management. The first stage obviously is to evaluate your position. So how do we evaluate our position? When it comes to the evaluation of the current position of a company, it says strategic analysis consider the impact of the internal and external environment on the strategy of an organization, which is also known as the strategic positioning. So first we need to identify where are you positioning yourself in the market, what is your current position, where do you see yourself currently in the market in terms of the active competition that you have right now in the market that is prevailing. So now remember one thing, whenever I say that I want to identify the current position, so what I need to do is the current position is from two different perspectives. The first and the foremost thing of the current position relates to the industry in which you are prevailing, and the second thing is the economy in which you are working right now. So I would rather say the micro and the macro analysis. Now, these are two different sets of areas that we need to see when we are basically strategizing about the current position of a company. So, if we look at the current position, the external environment, for example, when we consider the countrywide factor, as I've told you that this is going to be the macroeconomic factor. For example, when you are given a scenario where an organization is considering whether to shift the business to another country. For example, if I'm working in country A, my premises are in country and I would want to move my premises from country A to country B. So that is going to be a position, that is going to be the evaluation on my current position in terms of the economy in which I'm working. Or when an organization is planning to launch a new business setup, a new plant in a country, the common model that we are going to use is going to be the political, economical, social, technological, and ecological model, which is known as the pestle analysis. In this pestle analysis, we normally identify the political factors that are going to affect the organization and its environment, the economic factor, the social factor, technological, ecological, and the legal factors that are going to affect the overall environment of an organization. Remember, when the question is of around 20 marks, my suggestion is that you go on with the pest analysis. And if the question is of more than 20, I believe 25 or 30 marks, then you need to write the entire pest analysis within your examination. So it says the pestle analysis is going to be used as this guides the professional and scenario and the senior manager in effective decision making. However, when we consider the industry-wide factor, there is an analysis which is known as the Potter 5 force: customers, suppliers, competitors. In this model, we generally use the internal resources, and these are the internal resources, that is the human resources, managerial resources, company's image. If the company have any unique tangible asset, we are going to take into consideration of that asset. Let the company have some financial resources, there are certain IT related resources, there are certain, there's a brand or a corporate image that is being created by a company. So we are going to undertake each and every factor that relates to the internal factors, that relate to the internal strength and weaknesses of an organization, and we are going to evaluate where are we standing in terms of the economic position and where are we standing in terms of the industry position. So as I have told you that whenever we are going to talk about the industry analysis, remember we will apply a model with the name of Potter 5 forces. Now don't worry about what Potter 5 forces are, I'm going to tell you. But when we are currently evaluating the position of a company, see, this entire chapter is all about where is the company standing right now. Where do we stand right now? The entire chapter relates to our current position. So, if we are talking about the industry analysis, we are going to talk about the micro environment, and the model that we are going to use is the Potter 5 force model. However, when we are going to have an analysis of the major economic condition or the macro analysis, and we are evaluating where are we currently positioned in terms of the economy, we will use a model with the name of pestle. Now, how are we going to use it? Why are we using this model? How to relate this model in your examination? I'm going to discuss this in detail, but for the time being, just remember, if you are applying the pestle model, it is going to give you the current position of the company in terms of economic ambit, in terms of the economy in which you are operating. And if you are applying the Spotify force model, this is going to provide you an analysis in terms of the industry wide, in the industry. For example, if you are working in a steel industry, if you are working in an airline industry, so this is going to position you, this is going to identify you where are you currently positioned in terms of the industry in which you are operating. So let's move forward and let's see how are we going to use this specific model. So there are certain internal resources that we need to take into consideration. These are going to be the human resources, the image of the company, the financial resources. We are going to utilize all these resources and we will have a current position analysis as to where we are currently standing right now in terms of economic conditions, in terms of economy in which we are operating, and in terms of the industry in which we are operating. Now, remember one thing in the SBL examination, this is something which is very important. As you all know, that you are going to get pre-seen 15 days prior to your exam. Now, due to the fact that you're going to get a pre-scene 15 days prior to your examination, so this pre-scene is normally going to include two different things. Now, why I'm saying this? Because I'm going to relate something from this pre-scene to the chapter that I'm teaching you right now. So, in this pre-scene, there are two types of information. Firstly, you're going to get an information that relates to the industry. And secondly, you're going to get an information that relates to the company. Now, when he's going to provide you information that is related to your company, remember he's going to provide you some information about the mission or vision or objectives or goals. Now, if these four statements are normally given in the examination, now the examiner normally asks you to evaluate a project. And there can be instances where this specific project is actually a deviation from your mission statement. For example, we say that we are a philanthropic organization and we provide 80% of the profit to a philanthropy to an organization that works for the children education. However, the project is basically a project that relates to something which is, let's suppose, which is partially banned by the government, and the government is discouraging you to, get involved, or any other company to get involved. Although it is not illegal, but government, let's suppose, it's the production of cigarettes. So think of the fact that our mission is to provide 80% of the profitability that we are earning from any specific project to an organization that looks after the children health. And on the other hand, we are getting a project in order to produce these cigarettes. So don't you think that there's a discretion in between what we should have done and what we are doing actually? So if you are evaluating this project, you need to take into consideration the mission statement of the company. Now the mission statement of the company is stating something contrary to what you would have done in this specific project. So you need to make sure that when you are writing the answer, the evaluation should include that if we opt for this project, although the project seems to be viable, although the project seems to be financially capable, although the project seems to be non-financially good for the company, but the fact is that due to the fact that we are a philanthropic organization and we provide 80% of our returns to a health organization who looks after the health of the children, we need to take this into consideration to that we cannot actually invest in any such project despite the fact that they are providing us good amount of revenue or margins. We cannot invest in any such project that goes against the human health. So the examiner, they are going to provide you a mission statement in the pre-scene, and in the real examination you are going to get certain projects, and he will be asking you to evaluate that project. Now you need to keep in your mind that if I'm evaluating this specific project, make sure that the evaluation should include that the company should not actually opt for such a project because of the fact that goes contrary to what has been stated in the mission statement of the company. So this is a very important point that you need to note over here. And this mission statement is something that is normally provided to you in the pre-scene analysis of the company. So if I move forward, it says that mission statement, there will be a clarity of the mission or future course of direction. So it is vital for the organization to have a clear understanding of the current position and to have a clear mindset regarding their future action plans, as devised strategies might fail if the organization continue to deviate from its planned vision and mission strategy. So remember, in the examination, you are going to get the mission statement, you are going to get the vision statement in your pre-seen material. However, in the actual exam, you are going to get an exhibit regarding a project that goes contrary to your mission or contrary to your vision. So please make sure that you give an analysis in the evaluation that the examiner or the team should not opt for any such project because it is going contrary to what is stated in the mission and vision of the company. So the company need to be very much clear about their vision. The company need to be very much clear about their mission statement as well. Expectation of the key stakeholders, obviously the expectation of the key stakeholders is also very important parameter for the company. So as they have an interest in the ongoing activities of the business and well-being of the organization, therefore the fulfillment of these expectations should be the priority of the organization. So we need to make sure that, see, there are two different things. There is an expectation of the shareholder and there is an expectation of the general public, which include the shareholders, which include all other stakeholders about the company's perception. So we are not going to deviate from what is stated in our mission or vision statement, and we are not going to deviate from the expectation of the stakeholders as well, because every stakeholder is in some way or the other connected to the company and have a good stake in the company. So as they have an interest in the ongoing activities and well-being of an organization, therefore the fulfillment of these expectations should be the priority of the organization. Now, there are certain techniques that we need to include when we are planning the Potter 5 Force model. So, these techniques include the Potter 5 Force model, pestle analysis, SWOT analysis, value chain analysis, and stakeholder model. So, I'm going to talk about the SWOT analysis. Remember, this is not a model, rather, this is just a tool to evaluate the to help us in evaluating the current position of a company. Out of this tool, there are two pointers or two areas that relates to the internal factors. These are the strength and so these are the internal factors. Then we have the external factors, and these includes opportunities and remember, these are the external factors. So when we are doing the SWOT analysis, we need to identify what are the things that we have better than our competitors, and that is again going to be the strength of the company. And what are the things that we are not doing good as compared to our competitors? So this is going to be the weakness of the organization. Then if I move forward, it says what are the opportunities that we have right now in hand and what are the threats that we need to take into consideration before going into the organization, before taking up a project, before evaluating if this project is going to be a suitable one for the company or not. So there are certain strategic choices that we need to take into consideration. Remember, the first thing is where we are currently positioned in terms of the economy, in terms of the industry in which we are working. So now you know that where are you positioned in terms of the economy and the industry. Now evaluate what possible options or the strategic choices that you have. For example, I have a project A. The project A relates to getting into the organic growth. That is, if let's suppose if I'm into steel sector, so what I can do, I can have another machinery installed in order to cater the excessive amount of demand. That's an organic growth. Or let's suppose I can go on for an acquired growth. Let's suppose if I'm company A, I would want to buy company B with all its machinery, with all its assets and liability, so that I can have the customer of my company and I can also incorporate the customers of the other company. So, strategic choices involve identifying the best strategies for an organization. When devising a plan on a strategic activity to be implemented, the following three key elements should be taken into consideration. You need to generate all possible options in order to reach your mission. For example, if I have two different projects available right now and both these two different projects are mutually exclusive and I can just opt for any one of them. Let's suppose if I have a project in which I can let's suppose if I have a project in which I can I can produce cars and I am in the same industry, so this means that I'm going for organic growth. And let's suppose I have another option to go on into the restaurant industry, and this is going to be the acquired growth. So I'm going to generate all possible options that I have in order to reach to my mission. Once I have done this, then I need to analyze the pros and cons of all these options. So what do you understand by the word pros and cons of all these options? And I need to evaluate. And let's suppose going on with the let's suppose going on with the car production. As I'm into this industry, I have all the strength, I know all the insides and outsides of this industry, so I can perform well when I go on for the organic growth. However, the cons are that I'm not going to get a very good share in this market because this market is already on its maturity. So it would be better that if I go for the acquired growth. For the acquired growth, that is going to be a new industry for me. The risk factor is on the higher side, but the industry is growing right now. I can buy on the strength of other companies as due to the fact that they have the managerial capability. I have the leadership skill. They have the managerial capability, so I can perform well in the second point. So, I'm going to evaluate all the possible options that I have with the perspective of having the pros and cons of these options. Then select the strategy that best suits you. So I'm going for the strategy of acquired growth. I'm going to buy the management capabilities of company B, and I'm going to add on the leadership capabilities of my company, and we are going to synchronize the impact in such a manner that we will be in a very good position to make this thing possible in front of the people. So we will have a skyrocket profit margin at the end of the day. Once you know that where you are strategically positioned, number one, you know that what strategic options do you have, and you know that now I can implement this strategy into action. Now, what do you understand by the implementation of the strategy into action? Following three key elements should be considered when the planned strategies are being implemented. So, when you are implementing the planned strategy, implement the selected strategy and monitor the result. For example, if I am going for strategy number B, that is, if let's suppose if I am going for the acquired growth, that is, I'm going for restaurant industry. What I need to do, I have already evaluated the strength and weaknesses, and I have also evaluated the opportunities and threats. Once I'm done with this, and let's suppose if I believe that the model suits me the best and I can get the best out of it, now implement this strategy. Start working for building up a restaurant. Let's suppose you have built up the restaurant, you have started the restaurant sector business, you have taken over a company, you have made a bid to the company, and they have agreed. Now include your leadership capabilities and have the managerial capabilities of the other company, combine it together and monitor the result. Let's suppose the expectation was that we will be profitable in 2 years. And the reality is that it's right now 3 years and we are not profitable. So you need to monitor the result. And if you believe that no, I should have gone for the organic growth, it's better that if you don't see that this restaurant business is going to run better in the near future, we are going to get some good amount of profits in the near future, it is better that you amend the strategies if the desired result is not being achieved. Because if the desired result is not being achieved, it is better that you amend the strategy, change the strategy, move on to some other project, a project that is going to provide you a good amount of revenue, because this is going to be something which is very subjective. This is going to be something that you need to keep into consideration before going into the market. So this is something that you need to keep into your mind. Now, moving forward, it says that once you have implemented the strategy, now you need to move on with the external environment, which is an important parameter to identify and in order to evaluate yourself. So this is the three-step approach. The first step is to identify where you are currently positioned in terms of the economic and the industry analysis. Now we are getting into the detail of this thing. Second step is to identify all possible options, I would rather say all possible projects that you have that you can implement in the market and get the benefit out of it. And last but not the least, identify the project that you have implemented, identify the pros and cons of that project, implement it, evaluate the result, and wait for the wonders to happen into your life. Now, I'm moving towards the first step. The first step is the external environment. So the environment means the external environment that surrounds or affect the business. For example, the environment normally include the economy. The environment includes the laws, customers, competitors, etc. So you need to evaluate in terms of the economy, in terms of the laws that are prevalent. Again, pestle analysis is a very good answer. However, there are two different types of environments that are prevalent in the market. There is a general macroeconomic environment and there's an immediate micro environment. When I say the general macro environment, it relates to the countrywide analysis, and when I say the micro environment, it relates to the industry analysis. The environment pertains to the entire country, and the environment that pertains to the entire industry in which it operates. In order to devise the strategy, it is highly important that the reasonable predictions are made. The importance of predictions is described below. So you need to make some predictions in order to identify how your strategy is going to give you the bestest possible solution in the upcoming days. I'm repeating and I'm going to close this class here. I'm just repeating what I have already taught. I have taught you three different areas. Number one is your current position. Number two is the possible options. Number three is the implementation of all these options. I hope so. You like this class. For more insight into this chapter, you need to go on for the next class as well. Thank you.